What's going on, guys? We'll let you know that we have some poor audio in this episode. We apologize for that. We had some internet issues. We hope to have this resolved by the next episode, so sit back and enjoy.
Welcome to Woodshop 101. This is episode 132 for July 30th, 2018. On today's show, we are going to talk about a bunch of different things with Kevin OConner. I am Sam Wooddell of Sam Ryan Designs, and I'm here with my co-host Drew Short of Rock-n H Woodshop and Jimmy Crawford of guest host Kevin OConner from This Old House. What's up, y'all?
How's it going? It was very nice to meet you three and to join you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming on.
Sure thing. Yeah, you got it.
But we would love to thank our patrons, John Ramminger, Michael Brindle, Sean McHenry, Carl Mose, Neil Sims, and Eric Rhoten. If you would like to support the show, you can head over to woodshop101podcast.com/listen. Find the show notes today for today's episode, and there will be links for small one-time donations and reoccurring donations. If you want to become a patron to our Patreon campaign, then head over to patreon.com/woodshop101. You can buy Woodshop 101 podcast t-shirts, hoodies, or a Rev marker pack. Head to countrysideworkshop.com/shop for the link. And just to remind you, the Rev marker packs, those are down and on sale. So definitely snag some while you can. So.
Yeah. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah. Once they're gone. Yeah. And they're awesome, by the way. So, all right, let's just head right into the show. So we have some questions, that we got from some of our friends on Instagram, Kevin. And we're just going to answer some quick questions, and that's about it. So the first one we got was from Elevated Grain 716. When did you start letting your kids into the shop/explore woodworking?
Oh, man. Well, I got pictures. I've got 3 kids. I've got pictures of my oldest boy when he was probably 4 years old, banging around. I didn't have a shop at the time. We were renovating our first house, a 2-family. And I got pictures of him in his little Home Depot apron, banging around, following me around. Now, he's got plastic tools in his hand, so he's just doing that thing. So that was like exposure, but that wasn't exposed to any danger, if you know what I mean, in terms of the tools. Nothing sharp, no hammers.
You didn't let him use the table saw?
No, not right. Not at 4. I make him clean it out when I'm done. Dust collection.
Yeah, you can vacuum that. Yeah, right, definitely.
Well, you put a dull blade in there too, and that makes it safe, right? He can't cut himself on a dull blade.
Absolutely not. I'm thinking about 9 years old. 8 or 9 years old, they probably grabbed a power tool or 2. Chop saw I found was the easiest in my miter box, and I let them use that. And, that's with me kind of standing over them and checking them out. So I think that's probably 3rd grade-ish.
Yeah.
3rd or 4th grade.
Yeah, I think it's about age. 4th grade. My son just turned 8 and it'd be 3rd grade. So, yeah, 9 would be about 4th grade.
Yeah, 4th grade or so.
So how old are your kids right now?
The oldest is 13, and I have twins who are 9. So I got 9, and 13. Okay. And the reason I'm thinking that the first one was around 9 was because I know my 9-year-old was doing it last year or so, and he started a little early than his older brother, just because I think he was around it. He saw his older brother doing it.
Okay.
My memory's not that good. Their mother would know exactly down to the day and month. I can guarantee it.
I'm sure.
Although I probably didn't tell her about the first one. So she probably doesn't know about the first one.
Yeah.
Don't tell your mom, but we're gonna go into the shop and do this and that and this.
Yeah.
And then they turn around and tell mom, and you're like, dude, that was a secret. That was like a father-son secret.
Yeah, well, you can't hide the smile, right? The smile's too big when they pull the trigger on the chop saw the first time, and they see the piece of wood just sliced like butter.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big smile on a little boy's face.
Yeah,
so it's kind of hard to hide.
And that small jump they do, I can remember when my son pulled that trigger and he kind of jumped and was startled and he was like, "What was that?" I was like, "Dad, it's fine. Like, that spins the blade." And
the first time you ever hear it, right? I mean, you don't really know what's going to happen when you pull a trigger.
Yeah, it is definitely a little nerve-wracking. I still get nervous pulling the trigger sometimes on some of my stuff.
I will say though, even though they started early, or I guess that's early. First of all, I don't have a shop. I've got a shop in the garage, just around the perimeter that I have got built up. So there is no dedicated man cave shop that I got going like Norm used to have. But they actually don't do a ton of it. My oldest is moderately interested. My younger boy is definitely going to be the one who gets into it and is more interested. But the first guy he's more sporty and he's made stuff, but he just dives in on a couple projects and then he doesn't go anywhere near for 6 or 8 months. So I don't know. We'll see.
Nice.
Yeah. I think my son was probably 6. I think when he did his first like actual project with me. And since then, I think he's only done one more in about 2 years. So I don't expect like he's going to dive in and want to be in the shop every day right now. But I'm hoping those little exposures over 6 or 8 months will eventually get him interested in going back out there. So
one of the things I found with my oldest boy is that when I expose him to something that he probably has never been exposed to before, or his friends haven't been exposed to, like the woodworking, or we built a tree house in the backyard, so the sawzalls were going and stuff like that. He seems pretty chill about it. Like, oh, that was fun today. Like you just said, Jeremy. He's like, but then he doesn't go back to it. But when I see him in front of his friends, if he's got an opportunity to play a card, like I know how to do that, or I've done it before.
Oh yeah.
That cred makes him way more excited about what he has done with me. It's funny, right? Because it's, I think he likes time with Dad, but I don't think there's anything he likes more than one-upping his buddies.
Yeah.
Or, being at the top of the pack. And so anytime they have an opportunity to be like, oh yeah, I know how to do that, they play that card.
Yeah, or he shows that tree house and he's like, yeah, I built that tree house. Like,
yeah, exactly. Right.
Like,
then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, my dad and I, we worked out here week after week, for months, killed ourselves on this thing.
Yeah.
And he starts pointing stuff out, like we had to lift this 2x12 and hold it there while we drilled it, that kind of stuff. Then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, you never talked to me about that.
Yeah. So
I just got a comment from whitehawk.edc. He said, totally wish my son would join me in the shop for things other than sucking up bugs with the shop vac.
It's a start.
Yeah.
It's a start.
It's at least the shop vac and not the regular vac in the house. So
yeah, seriously.
Yeah, Hannah joined me for the first time in the shop last year, and that's when she was 6, and she actually did a video with me on YouTube and made a wine bottle bird feeder, and it's still hanging up in the backyard right now.
Yeah.
So she had a blast doing that for the first time.
Cool.
I will say it's really fun. I don't have any of my own kids yet, but I am a nanny to 3 kids. I've been with them for about 4 years. And the middle is like really into it. She asks for all of my scrap wood. Like, can I please get your scrap wood? I want to build this. And all she does is like glue them together and then screw them together to make these like mounds of different shapes and whatnot. And we just built like some American Girl doll furniture together. And she was like over the moon. She was like, that was the coolest thing ever. So now she wants to be a woodworker, which is pretty cool. And she is 8. So I feel like that age range is good.
Yeah, so I just bought yesterday. I just ordered the Ryobi like 18-volt hot glue gun, and I got it specifically for my son, so he can go out there like whenever he wants and dig through the scrap bin and just kind of start putting stuff together, and I don't have to worry about him with the hammer and nails and stuff, especially because he usually wants to get like watch me or stand by the door or something when I'm out there and my wife's not home. So when I'm like, hey, watch your little sister. If she needs something, come get me. And he just wants to stand out there with me. So I'm hoping, like, if I can give him the hot glue gun and some scraps, like, he'll sit by the door with his sister and they'll just go to town building different shapes or whatever. And I don't have to worry about him swinging a hammer and my daughter, getting in the way, because you know her, she's getting in the middle of everything.
Yes, so, she will.
Hot glue gun's the perfect choice, right? Yeah. I mean, that thing is, it's got gun in the name, so they like it. Yeah. And they put things together, and it's kind of magical to them that they can actually get glue from a trigger. I'm telling you, triggers, anything with triggers, they like it. And then you don't have to worry about them shooting a nail through their finger. Yeah, absolutely. Although they like the nail gun, too.
Yeah. So I'll probably have to order another one, because as soon as I showed my wife, she wanted to commandeer it. So I was like, let me order a second one here. So.
And I forgot to mention, Kevin, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself real quick so that they know your background?
Well, I mean, there's not that much to tell. I'm the host of this old house. That's it. Like, that's the whole story right there. I've been doing it for 15 years, which is very cool. But that means that I'm still the new guy on the show by 25 years, believe it or not, because remarkably, the show is in its 40th season, premiered back in 1979. I think people know that. I don't know if they know the dates, but they know it's kind of been on forever, and most people know it's been on since before they were alive and all that kind of stuff. You heard I got 3 kids. I live in the Boston area, Massachusetts, which is where we film the show and all the rest of the boys work. And I dig it. I'm not a professional tradesperson. I've never had to feed my family by the work of my hands. I love doing the stuff, and I've learned a ton over the years. I was doing it before I was on the show, but I've never done it professionally, and I don't play the professional on the show. I'm the guy asking the questions, and I'm still doing that 15 years later. I work with some awesome dudes, who just are really, really good at what they do. So there's no need for people to get, advice on how to do something in around the house from me if they can get it from Norm or from Tom Silva. And I'll keep doing it, I guess, as long as they let me. I mean, I really enjoy it, and like I said, I've been down to 15 years, and we'll see how long they let me do it.
That's awesome.
Who's this Tom character you're talking about?
Exactly.
I used to watch that with my grandpa growing up. We would watch it when I was like 5. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used to watch it with my dad when I was growing up, too. I mean, it was on for years.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think that you would be hosting that show after watching it as a kid?
No, never. No. You get the question a million times when you come out of the blue and they give you the host job, and now you're the host. And it's a national show, right? So, 4 or 5 months into it, you're doing interviews with the New York Times, and they're saying, oh, tell us a story. And people ask you in all of these interviews, like, is it your dream job? And the funny thing is like, not really, because I never even dreamed of having it. I didn't aspire to it, and I never thought. And I was a finance, I was working at a bank. I'm a finance major, MBA, and all that kind of stuff when they asked me for it. So, no, I never thought about it. I never wanted to go into TV. I never wanted to go into theater or perform, none of that stuff. It literally came out of the blue, fell in my lap, and I was a huge fan of the show. Don't get me wrong. I was a gigantic fan of the show growing up. And my college buddies will tell you, like I was the roommate who fought them for the clicker to turn on This Old House on the weekends, and they'd be like, dude, let's watch some basketball. I was like, no, I need a half hour with the fellas. And they're like, what? Like, what are you watching? And I was like, no, I gotta watch, So I was definitely passionate in that regard, but not, with aspirations of being on television or being on the show. Totally out of left field. But good, like no regrets. Really, really fun job.
That's awesome, I bet.
That show started airing when I was born, actually. I was born in 79, so it kind of kicked off whenever I was born. It's crazy. And I do remember watching that and New Yankee Workshop whenever it started coming on. Yeah. Every Saturday, it seemed like.
Yeah, probably. I mean, if you think about back then, there weren't a lot of channels. It wasn't a lot to watch.
Yeah.
You know?
No, the TV hovered around 10 and 13.
Yeah, exactly. So there were a lot of people who, I mean, they still do. We're still very proud that we can say we're still the most watched home improvement show on television. And the PBS network helps us a lot because it's everywhere. You know, cable's good, but it's only in a percentage of homes, whereas PBS is in every home. But I mean, back in the day when there was 4 networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS, you know, people were watching this stuff. It was huge. It was absolutely huge. So, you know, like you, Drew, I grew up watching it as a kid. It was, you know, PBS was on.
Yeah.
I got a question just now from whitehawk.edc. He said, do you still keep in contact with Bob?
So I never knew Bob. The show started in '79. Bob Vila was the first host, and he did it for 10 years from '79 to '89. And he was replaced. He went out on his own to do a show for commercial television. He was replaced by a gentleman named Steve Thomas, and Steve Thomas did it for 14 years before I started. So Bob Vila was so far gone from the show by the time I started that I don't know him. The other guys, obviously, because they all worked with him for a decade, you don't know him and everything. But I'm, quote unquote, the new guy. So nope, I don't keep in touch with Bob.
Did you have any
That's funny.
interest with working with your hands, building things, anything like that, prior to being the host on this show?
Definitely. I was, totally. So growing up, it was that whole story of, like, I loved anytime I could make sawdust growing up. It was awesome. And I come from a big family. I got just 7 kids in my family. And 5 of us are boys, and we used to build everything when we were young, tree houses and go-karts and skateboards and all that kind of stuff. My dad's a civil engineer, and so he used to run job sites. His line of construction was all commercial work, big stuff, skyscrapers and industrial and commercial and hotels and all that kind of stuff. But he always had job sites, and so he'd feed us scrap materials, which kept the interest high, which was great. So I loved doing that. And then, when I got old enough, college age-ish or so, I started buying tools and started making bad furniture like everyone else who gets into it. A couple tables and TV consoles. There are several people out there, buddies of mine, who are just waiting for the right moment to blackmail me and pull out one of the things I've made them from their basement, just to embarrass me in front of the world. And then when we bought our first house, my wife and I, we got married, and we deliberately went out and looked for a fixer-upper because that's really what I wanted to do. Like I said, I had a finance degree, so I was working at a bank, and I liked my job and all, but I loved, like, what I really wanted to do was come home at night and swing a hammer and fix up our house. So my experience prior to was all just hobbyist, enthusiast, what I think a lot of people do on the side. And it's a big distinction. I make this a lot because I got to speak in front of a lot of big crowds, and I speak in front of a lot of professional organizations because of the show and everything. And there's many times that I'm talking to a room full of professional craftsmen. And it's important to me to make the distinction that, people come up to me all the time and say, it looks like you could do some of that stuff that Tommy does or Norm does. And I was like, you know what? Even if I could, until you do it professionally, it's a whole different ballgame. I've never had to feed the family based on stuff that I've made. And that's a huge distinction, because what these guys are doing is they're not just really good at what they do, right? They're not just really, really good craftsmen, but they're doing it in a way that gets them paid, gets them clients. They're doing it in a fast way that gets them more clients, and that's a whole nother part of the gig that you have to figure out. And I got weekend warriors coming up to me all the time saying, look at this thing that I built. And I'm like, that's awesome. But that doesn't make them a professional, right? I mean, you guys can relate to this. To get paid for the thing this week, next week, and for the next, 10 weeks, 12 weeks of the month, it's a whole different thing. Yeah. So I like it. I'm a hobbyist, but I get paid to talk. I get paid to ask questions of guys who do this for a living.
Would you consider that your dream job then?
At this point, I really like what I do. Really like what I do. There's other things I think I could do and I would really like. I've switched around a couple times in my career, so I think there's other things I could do that I really like. I enjoy this. I'm not planning on going anywhere. But if I had to go, I'd be like, all right, that's fine. That's a good run. 15 years is a good run. Maybe 5 years it'll come to an end. 20 years is a pretty good run. I don't think I'd go back into TV. I think I would just go into something else.
Nice. So we have another question for you, and it has to do with houses. You were just talking about fixer-uppers. So Bear Creek Woodworks wants to know, how did the producers decide which houses to feature?
So just to put it in perspective, on this old house, we have two shows, This Old House and Ask This Old House. On This Old House, which is the big full-blown renovation of the home, and we followed over the course of a season, people write us. A lot of people write us, send us emails. We got a website and all that stuff. Like 5,000 emails a month, pouring in, of people soliciting us, saying, "Hey, here's my project." And there's a form you fill out with some criteria and all that. And so then what we do is the producers, as we start a new season, we start with an idea, not with a house. We start with an idea. What haven't we shown in 40 years, or what haven't we shown in the last couple seasons? What's of interest right now? So, for example, we had been meaning to get to Charleston, South Carolina for a very long time. It's a beautiful city. It's got some great architecture. It's very historic. It's very well preserved. And we'd always wanted to go down there. So just recently, last season, we started with the idea of let's go to Charleston. And that leads us to dip into the mailbag and sort through it and find out, who's there and who's available and all that kind of stuff. So the short answer is people write us and we pick from the mailbag. But the longer answer is the mailbag's way too big to read through it all. Start with some certain criteria of where do we want to go, what stories do we want to tell, and then we start piecing the pieces of the puzzle together. Are the homeowners good on camera? Are they ready to go? Do they have their permits? Is there enough work to do to fill a season and all that kind of stuff? So it's a real art. There is no simple sort of formula to just getting your house on This Old House. Mm-hmm. We only do 2 a season, so there's not a lot of opportunity there. Now, when it comes to Ask This Old House, our sister show, which is a lot smaller projects, and the boys are going out ringing doorbells and fixing leaky faucets and changing out hot water heaters and stuff, that's a lot easier, and that's really the mailbag. Like, that's just going through the thousands of things and saying, all right, we're going to Kansas. We're going to do 3 stories in Kansas. What do we got? Let's go through the mailbag, see what interests us. And it's a lot easier to find those. But we've got to choose projects that we think are going to be good for the homeowner, but more importantly, good for the audience. So if a homeowner's got a problem that's super quirky, it's very idiosyncratic to their house, it doesn't really interest us, because if we fix it and show it on television, no one else in the audience really benefits from that. So we try to pick projects that help the homeowner, but are projects that we think that a lot of people are dealing with. Because at the end of the day, our show is educational. We're trying to instruct and inform. So we're trying to pick projects that people can relate to.
Very nice. The house is beautiful in Charleston. I was just there, and it is gorgeous.
Yeah, they did a tremendous job. I got to give a shout out. When we travel on the road like that, Boston is our home base. So here, our guys do the work. When we travel on the road, we have a guest general contractor and a local crew, because we don't obviously fly plasterers and plumbers back and forth from Boston. And so, yes, the house is awesome, and there's a ton of cred that goes to the local contractors down there who helped us, because it's their handiwork that made that thing so beautiful. And we helped out a little bit, but trust me, it was just a little.
Well, it's gorgeous.
How did you like dealing with the rainy weather trying to record during that season?
I like Charleston a lot, but if I never have to go again in the summer, that's going to be just fine with me. I do not know how people live down there. Coming from New England, it is brutal. 100% humidity, 100 degrees, pouring rain showers every day. I just am like, what is going on down here?
Yeah, so that's where I live. So
I love it. I'd go anytime.
I'm not I'm not from there. I'm from West Texas, but I've lived there for the last 2 years, and I'll live there a couple more years before I move on for something else. But yeah, it is. I never knew it could rain so much until I moved here, and it's crazy. Just like yesterday, in the matter of like half an hour, it had rained so hard, so fast. Streets were flooded. Downtown was flooded. But what a lot of people don't know is downtown floods no matter what, because it sits right at sea level, just below sea level. So anytime you get like a king tide or your super high tide and a little bit of rain, downtown's just you need a kayak to get through it. So
yeah. Yeah, the bowl is full already at king tides, right? You don't need much to spill over.
No, not at all.
I was surprised, though. I'll be honest with you. It was way more tropical. I didn't think there was any place in the country that was that tropical. It's like the Caribbean. The weather pattern is crazy.
It is.
How do you deal with it? I mean, West Texas is hot, but it's not that humid, is it?
No, I'm from Odessa, so home of like Friday Night Lights. So if you ever heard the book or the movie, no, it's very dry. I deal with it because I lived in New York City for 3 years, and then I lived in Virginia for a total of like 8 years, close to it. And then, so I've lived in humid climates since I left. So I get by. I never planned on it when I moved here, and they were like, it rains every day in the summer. It's like, nah, I can't rain every day. No, it rains every day, every day. So it definitely takes juggling, especially when you want to work in the shop. Again, I have a garage shop, so I could roll up that door and start working and doing like a lot of finishing projects, spray lack or something like that. When I want to move the piece outside, you got to time it very right, and you got to be like, well, okay, it hadn't rained in like 2 days. I can spray, but if it rained yesterday, I'm gonna have a hard time doing any kind of finish, today because the humidity is gonna be so high. So it takes a lot of planning, and it can slow things down in the shop. Especially when it comes to tool maintenance, the rust and things like that. You really got to work on those cast iron surfaces a little bit more than what you would in not as much of a tropical climate. So.
But you got yourself a beautiful city.
Yes.
Which is, and you got good food, and everyone I met down there seemed super nice. You got a young, vibrant population. The architecture's off the hook.
Oh,
you got some house-proud people in that town, so you got a lot of things going for it. I'm going to go back and just make sure it's November.
May is the best time. We always go in May. It's like perfect weather.
Yeah,
and it's great.
May and October are your best times to go because it starts cooling off. So you get your 70s, 80s degree temps in October, and that's right as the rainy season is really winding down. And then May is right before the rainy season starts. So,
yeah, we had people. A lot of people stopped us on the street. We had people chasing us down, wanting to show us their houses.
That's awesome.
Honestly, because the houses are beautiful, and the people down there really care for them well, and they're usually very old and historic, and they're sort of birds of a feather with us. We were filming. We were trying to do an open to the series, and so we went down to the Battery. So for your listeners, it's the section down in town, along the harbor, with the big sea wall and the beautiful home. So it's kind of the iconic little corner of the city. And our producers decided, in all of their wisdom, because they like us being goofy, they got the horse and carriage, which is also kind of iconic for Charleston. And we decided to open the show with one of those things involved in the open. So we're kind of making a scene, we've got cameras and we got a horse and cart, and, we're blocking traffic and all that. Anyway, we're filming, and the horse and cart starts rolling down one of the main roads, and this woman's chasing us. And we're just trying to ignore it. We're just like, oh man, maybe the horse will just outrun this lady. But she caught up because those horses don't move that fast, and she's talking to us, and we're still filming. We're trying to like get the thing done, and she's handing us her card, and we thought she was crazy. Very historic, meticulously redone. South of Broad, super nice house. And she's like, "Come see this house. You guys are this whole. You got to come see this house." And we ended up coming to see it. We checked her out. We're like, "Oh, this is awesome." We went back several times, and we met the plumbers and the architects. Everyone who did the renovation. We had a grand old time. But that was sort of the reception that we got in the hospitable Charleston, South Carolina. People just came out of the woodwork and welcomed us to the city, and were just very gracious and saying, "You guys want some sweet tea? You guys want to come by, check out my place? We'd love to have you." All that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Real quick before we wrap up, where the battery and the house that you guys did, how close is it in proximity?
you could walk from. Well, we did two houses. The main house we did, which was the brick one, is in right downtown, and you could walk in fewer than 10 minutes from the house to the battery. So if you were to start the battery with the harbor to your back and walk up, 10 minutes you're there. The second house was over in the Elliottboro neighborhood, and that is only 2 miles from the first, so 2 point something from the battery. The wooden structure one that we actually did not finish in time for the season, but have since gone back and filmed the wrap of that and the conclusion. So they're very close proximity. The downtown's not that big.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people, I'm not at liberty to disclose the exact addresses because they're private homes and all of that. But Charleston knows where they are. It's a big tourist town, big hospitality town, and there's plenty of people who, have just walked in the local establishments and said, "Hey, where's this old house?" And the bartender tells them. And everyone's been very gracious just to kind of walk by politely, take a look at it, and not pester the owners.
That's very nice. I know that Battery Row is amazing. You can just stare at all of the architecture and everything, and it's crazy how they keep up the houses. I mean, they do a great job, and everyone is so friendly. So definitely, if you guys get a chance, go check out Charleston because it's a great little area. Yeah,
down the Battery in Rainbow Row.
So pretty. Every year we go. It's gorgeous.
Sam, you can take me next time if you want.
Okay, you could come, and then we'll go to the beach after. It's perfect.
Or y'all both could just come for Haven next year.
Is it going back there?
I don't know. I asked Kristen Stockdale, so I'm waiting to hear.
Well, if it is, we'll both be there. But we would like to remind you guys, we're going to wrap up real quick. I would like to remind you guys, if you listen to the show on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating. It helps us reach a greater audience. And we are about to do an after show, but we wanted to thank you, Kevin, for coming on. We really appreciate it. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thanks so much.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you guys.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. What is the best way to get in contact with you? Instagram, email, for our viewers and listeners?
I've got social on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. They're all Kevin OConner, TOH. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of pay attention to Instagram. I completely ignore Twitter. I populate it. Whatever I post to Instagram goes to Twitter. But there's people that have been trying to reach me on Twitter for months that I have not even gotten back to. IG is the best. Facebook is the second best. But I'll apologize in advance that you might hit me up with a DM or something. As you guys can attest, weeks or months may go by as we try to coordinate stuff. So I try to get back to people as much as I can, but I also just disappear for weeks. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And Jeremy, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
You can find me on my website, countrysideworkshop.com, or if you want to get in touch with me fairly quickly, Instagram. So you can find me at Countryside Workshop.
Drew?
Like everybody else, I'm pretty active on Instagram. I got a lot of social media out there, and Facebook I'm pretty active on as well. But my website has all of that contact info, which is rhwoodshop.com, and you can contact me pretty quickly that way.
Perfect. And you guys know you can contact me on Instagram, Sam Ryan Designs, or you can email me or go to my website, samryandesigns.com. Also, I'm most active on Instagram. If you guys wanted to get in touch with the podcast, we have a voicemail that we would love to hear your voicemails. They're the best, and then we play them on the show. Our number is 409-234-3959. And we also have an email, kickback@woodshop101podcast.com. So you can get us there as well. So perfect, guys. That was a super fun show. Again, Kevin, thank you for coming on and talking with us. And are we ready? We do something special at the end, Kevin. It's kind of something that we end the show on. So we're going to do it in 3, 2, 1.
Boom!